The College Dropout. Kanye spent about 4 years putting this thing together, starting back in 1999 while still producing for other people. Most of it came together in studios out in Los Angeles and New York, plus a janky setup inside his apartment in Newark. The original release got delayed 3 times, and after a leak, he basically redid a bunch of it. New verses, string sections, and cleaner drum programming. He leaned hard into that chipmunk soul sound, chopping up old school R&B vocals with gospel choirs and dramatic strings. There are 21 tracks total, but that includes a pile of skits. Some of the biggest names at the time jumped in. Jay-Z, Mos Def, Ludacris, Jamie Foxx, Talib Kweli, Common, Twista, and a bunch more. He even had violin from Miri Ben Ari and piano by John Legend. 12 songs used, 14 samples, and yeah, the credits list 45 different writers. Through the Wire was done with his jaw wired shut after a car crash. All Falls Down samples Lauryn Hill. Slow Jams pulls from Luther Vandross, and Jesus Walks pulls from both Curtis Mayfield and the ARC Choir. School Spirit flips an Aretha Franklin track. The last song, Last Call, runs over 12 minutes with Kanye talking through how the whole thing came together. It dropped through Roc-A-Fella and Def Jam in February 2004. Priced around $15, give or take. It debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200 with 441,000 sold that first week. It went 4 times platinum in the United States and crossed 4 million globally. It cleaned up at award shows. Grammy for Best Rap Album, Best Rap Song for Jesus Walks, nominated for Album of the Year, plus wins at the MOBO Awards and the Source Awards. It even got a 10 out of 10 from Pitchfork. Rolling Stone ranked it 74 on their greatest albums list. The artwork showed Kanye as a bear in a school setting, and that bear kept showing up on future albums. He called the album The College Dropout after ditching Chicago State at age 20, even though his mom worked there. Def Jam didn't even want to pay for studio time, so he funded parts of it himself. Late registration. This one came out on August 30th, 2005, and yeah, it didn't exactly sneak onto shelves. It sold 860,000 copies in its first week and went straight to number 1. Kanye threw nearly $2 million at this project and teamed up with John Brian, a film composer who'd never worked on a hip-hop album before. Together, they built these wild orchestral tracks with strings, harpsichords, even Chinese bells. It wasn't just beats and samples anymore. This thing had full-on cinematic drama. The album got recorded in New York and Los Angeles, mostly between 2004 and 2005. Studios included Sony, The Record Plant, Chalice, and Grandmaster. Kanye started solo, but brought Brian in late to rework everything. By November 2004, he had about 3/4 done, but John Brian helped turn it into something much more layered. Instead of leaning on sped-up soul vocals like before, this time, it was all about blending live instruments with complex production. You get strings, celesta, horns, and layered drums. The sound was influenced by alt and trip-hop artists like Fiona Apple and Portishead, which is probably not what people expected. There are 21 tracks here, and the features are loaded. Adam Levine, Jamie Foxx, Common, Brandy, Jay-Z, and even Nas. Gold Digger ran the Billboard Hot 100 for 10 straight weeks. Diamonds from Sierra Leone made noise too and picked up a Grammy for Best Rap Song. By the end of its second week, it had already sold over 1,100,000 copies in the United States. It got certified 5 times platinum later on. Internationally, it went double platinum in Canada, triple platinum in the United Kingdom, and hit platinum in Australia. At the Grammys, it grabbed the award for Best Rap Album and racked up 8 nominations total. Metacritic gave it an 85. Critics went nuts over the production and depth. It made Rolling Stone's 500 list at 117 and shows up on a bunch of best of rankings. This album didn't just follow The College Dropout, it leveled it up. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, Graduation. This album dropped on September 11th, 2007 and went straight to number 1 on the Billboard 200 after selling 957,000 copies in the first week. Kanye recorded it between 2005 and 2007, bouncing between New York and Los Angeles. He stepped away from the soul samples that dominated his earlier work and leaned into electronic sound. Think house, Euro disco, and synth-heavy beats. The vibe changed completely. He said the idea came after touring with U2 and realizing he needed tracks that could hit hard in stadiums. So he built songs that felt massive, less skits, more anthems. Collaborators included DJ Toomp, Eric Hudson, Brian Miller, Warren Campbell, and Knotts. They helped shape a tighter, glossier sound. Instead of warmth and nostalgia, this one sounded futuristic, even icy at times. The lyrics shift too. Kanye focused more on fame, pressure and self-reflection. Tracks like Big Brother tackled mentorship and jealousy, while I Wonder explored ambition and regret. This time, it's less narrative and more personal philosophy. He's still flexing, but with a bit more introspection. Takashi Murakami did the cover art, throwing Kanye's Dropout bear into this surreal, animated world with pastel skies and dreamlike colors. The rollout was wild. It went head-to-head with 50 Cent's Curtis on release day. Media turned it into a sales showdown. Kanye won that battle, and it wasn't close. It scored 79 out of 100 on Metacritic and earned his third Grammy for Best Rap Album. It also got him another Album of the Year nomination. Critics liked how he blended synths with rap and kept pushing the genre. Spin called it Designer Adrenaline, which is about as dramatic as it gets. By day one, it had already sold over 437,000. It became the fastest-selling digital album ever at the time, with 133,000 downloads. By week 2, it was at 1,183,000 sold. The United Kingdom certified it triple platinum, and Canada went double. Graduation didn't just end the trilogy, it changed the landscape for every rapper who wanted to go bigger, louder, and weirder. 808s and Heartbreak. This one dropped on November 24th, 2008, and Kanye made it in just 3 weeks. He recorded between Hawaii and California, using mostly Glenwood Studios and Avex Recording Studio. This wasn't another rap album. He lost his mom, ended an engagement, and basically used this whole thing to bleed through auto-tune and the Roland T R808. That drum machine gave the record its name, and yeah, its entire emotional tone. The production stripped away the warmth of soul samples and loaded up on cold synths, somber piano, tribal drums, and long, moody strings. Kanye worked with No ID, Jeff Basker, Mr. Hudson, and Plain Pat. The vocals, he barely rapped. Everything was auto-tuned, warped, detached. He wasn't chasing bars, he was trying to get through the grief. There were 12 tracks. Guests included Kid Cudi, Lil Wayne, Young Jeezy, Mr. Hudson, and Estero. Songs like Coldest Winter tackled his mom's passing, and Heartless came from a breakup. Then there's Love Lockdown, just pounding drums in isolation. He ended it with Pinocchio Story, a raw freestyle recorded live in Singapore, where he flat out says, "Fame didn't fix the pain." This wasn't built for hits, but it debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 with 450,000 sold in the first week. It ended the year with over 1 million in the US and eventually got triple platinum status. In the UK, it peaked at 11 and went platinum. Canada certified it platinum too, and it hit gold in Australia and Ireland. Globally, it ranked 31st in IFPI's best-selling albums for 2008. Critics didn't all know what to make of it. Metacritic gave it a 75. Rolling Stone called it mournful and bold. Some said it felt like a self-pitying drift. But over time, this one aged into a classic. It didn't win a Grammy for Best Album, but it didn't have to. This was the blueprint for emo rap. Drake, Future, Juice WRLD. They all came out of this shadow. It's the moment Kanye broke the genre, then rebuilt it in grayscale. My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Released on November 22nd, 2010. This one wasn't subtle. Kanye recorded it mostly in Hawaii, pulling in an army of collaborators like Jay-Z, Nicki Minaj, Pusha T, Bon Iver, Rick Ross, Kid Cudi, and Elton John. He set up a strict, no-nonsense studio schedule and flew everyone out to work on the album. The chaos of public controversy pushed him into a kind of exile, and this album became the outlet. The production went full maximalist. It mashed hip-hop with progressive rock, soul, R&B, and orchestral elements. He pulled samples from King Crimson and Aphex Twin, stacked strings over pounding drums, and gave the whole thing a lush, towering feel. Producers included Mike Dean, No ID, and Jeff Basker. Every track felt engineered for dramatic effect. The lyrics dug into his obsessions with fame, ego, guilt, and self-destruction. Runaway is basically one long toast to his own flaws. Power hits like a self-aware meltdown. Even the wild, chaotic verses on Monster carry that sense of Kanye grappling with himself through every line. The album cover, painted by George Condo, showed a nude figure straddling another and sparked enough controversy to get it banned from major retailers. Kanye used alternate covers, all wrapped in a solid red border. The whole visual package matched the music. Bold, over the top, and unapologetic. It debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 with about 496,000 sold in week 1. It's now triple platinum in the United States. It moved over 108,000 in Canada, went double platinum in Australia, and its worldwide numbers crossed 8.5 million. Singles like Power, Runaway, Monster, and All of the Lights all charted high, with Runaway landing at #12 and Monster peaking at 18. The Metacritic score? 94. Critics basically lost their mind. It won the Grammy for Best Rap Album and was nominated for Album of the Year. This album's legacy is massive. It didn't just top lists for the decade, it changed how people thought rap could sound. Nothing about it was safe, and that's exactly why it stuck. Watch the Throne. Released on August 8, 2011, this wasn't just an album. It was a full-on flex. What started as a 5-track EP turned into a globe-trotting, luxury-dripping, full-length record. Kanye and Jay-Z recorded it everywhere from New York to Paris, Honolulu to Sydney, and even an undisclosed spot in Abu Dhabi, because of course they did. The sessions ran from late 2010 through July 2011, and the list of producers is almost longer than the track list. Kanye led the charge, but they brought in 88 keys, Hit Boy, Pete Rock, The Neptunes, Swizz Beatz, and a dozen others. Sonically, this thing blends hip-hop with prog rock, orchestral flourishes, and some aggressive sampling. There's grandeur, weirdness, and synths that sound like they came from a space opera. The themes: luxury, legacy, black excellence, and the tension that comes with towering success. Jay gets introspective about being a dad, Kanye wrestles with his public image, and both of them keep reminding you how far they've come by screaming it in all caps. There are 12 tracks on the standard edition, plus extras on the deluxe. No Church in the Wild opens with Frank Ocean and some philosophical drama, flipping samples from Phil Manzanera and James Brown. Otis carves up Otis Redding's vocals and lays them over crunchy drums. Niggas in Paris might be the most iconic. It even samples Blades of Glory, because sure, why not? And New Day layers in Nina Simone's Feeling Good, giving the whole thing a somber, reflective edge. The album debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, selling 436,000 in its first week. It broke iTunes records with nearly 290,000 downloads and hit the top 10 in 11 countries. It's been certified 5 times platinum in the US alone. Critics gave it a 76 on Metacritic. They praised the chemistry, the production, the ambition. Some thought the lyrics didn't always go deep, but that didn't stop the Grammys. In Paris and No Church in the Wild both won, while Otis grabbed nominations. The tour that followed? Record-breaking. Lights, fire, giant cubes. They didn't just watch the throne, they built it. Cruel Summer. Released on September 14th, 2012. This was Kanye's Good. Music Flex. A compilation loaded with collaborators from the label and a few heavy hitters outside it. You've got Pusha T, Big Sean, Kid Cudi, John Legend, Common, Sci-Hi the Prince, Teyana Taylor, and even names like Jay-Z, Ghostface Killah, Mace, and 2 Chainz. It was Kanye's way of showing off the full roster with high production value and some massive features. The album was announced back in late 2011 and recorded all over the place. The cover art came from Kanye's design agency, Donda, and it was paired with a short film that premiered at Cannes. The music leaned into stadium-level beats, synth-heavy hooks, and a lot of swagger. The production team included Kanye, Travis Scott, Hit Boy, Lifted, Hudson Mohawke, and a few others, pulling together big, dramatic sounds meant to dominate the airwaves. Lyrically, the project wasn't shy. Songs like Cold, Click, and Mercy are soaked in brags, designer labels, and ruthless confidence. But New God Flow offered more weight, with Kanye and Pusha T reflecting on their influence in hip-hop and taking aim at rivals. The album didn't go too deep, but it knew how to hit hard. There were 4 singles that led the chart. Mercy had Kanye, Pusha T, Big Sean, and 2 Chainz, packed with punchlines, and a dancehall sample that drove the beat. Cold came out 2 weeks later, and New God Flow showed up mid-summer. Right before the album dropped, Click landed with Jay-Z in the mix and grabbed major attention. It debuted at #2 on the Billboard 200 with 205,000 copies sold in its first week. It reached #2 in the United Kingdom, #4 in Canada, and made the top 10 in Australia and Switzerland. By July 7, 2021, it was certified platinum in the United States. Critics weren't fully sold. Metacritic hovered in the mixed zone. Some loved the energy in individual tracks, but others knocked the album for feeling more like a playlist than a project. Even so, the hits stuck. The winter never came, but the summer left a mark. Yeezus. Released on June 18, 2013, this one tore away from everything Kanye had built before it. Forget soul samples and lush arrangements. This was minimal, brutal, and jagged. The album was recorded in places like Paris and Malibu, and in classic last-minute fashion. Rick Rubin was called in just weeks before release to strip it all down. The production lineup was stacked. Daft Punk, Arca, Mike Dean, Hudson Mohawke, Travis Scott, Gus Affelstein. Basically a roster built to tear apart expectations. Sonically, Yeezus is all distortion and sharp edges. It mixes industrial, electronic, punk, and Chicago drill into something that felt more like a digital meltdown than a traditional rap album. Synths screech, beats hit like sirens, and the song structures barely hold together. Lyrically, it's rage and chaos. Race, power, religion, narcissism, and defiance, delivered through snarls and snarled auto-tune. There are 10 tracks. On Sight blasts open with synths and an old gospel sample. Black Skinhead channels rock aggression. I Am a God pulls from reggae and Bollywood. New Slaves flips Hungarian psych rock, and Blood on the Leaves collides. Nina Simone's Strange Fruit with trap horns and Tonight Chaos. Bound 2 closes things out with a soul sample that almost feels like a joke after the rest. It debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200, selling 327,000 in its first week. Then it dropped hard, one of the biggest second-week sales drops ever. Still, it went platinum by January 2014 and hit double platinum by November 23, 2020. Critics mostly loved it. Metacritic gave it an 84, and reviewers praised how it broke the mold. Some hated the abrasiveness. Others couldn't stop talking about it. Either way, nobody ignored it. It got Grammy nominations for Best Rap Album and Best Rap Song with New Slaves, but no wins. Then came the Yeezus Tour, a mountain-shaped stage, a floating platform, masks, costumes, and one of Kanye's most theatrical performances ever. He didn't just make noise with this one. He carved out a new sound entirely. Yeezus wasn't meant to please, it was meant to shock. The Life of Pablo. Released on February 14th, 2016, this was Kanye's 7th studio album, and probably his most chaotic. It was recorded all over the place, from Italy to Mexico to Canada, and back across the United States. Originally titled, So Help Me God, then Swish, then Waves. It finally landed as The Life of Pablo, just days before dropping. Producers like Rick Rubin, Metro Boomin, Mike Dean, and Madlib helped shape the sound, and Kanye pulled in features from Chance the Rapper, Kid Cudi, Frank Ocean, and a bunch of others. Musically, this thing is a genre blender. It swings between gospel, trap, experimental noise, and soul. Ultralight Beam opens with a literal gospel choir and ends in spiritual chaos. Then Famous crashes in with Nina Simone and Rihanna samples before launching into messy celebrity callouts. The production doesn't stick to rules. It's raw, jumpy, and unpredictable. Lyrically, Kanye moves through family, religion, addiction, ego, fame, and fatherhood. He's vulnerable one second, cocky the next. You get big spiritual questions slammed against shallow flexes. It's a fractured mirror of everything going on in his head, and somehow it still works. The album cover, by Belgian artist Peter de Potter, is a screaming orange background with scattered text and 2 clashing images, a family photo and a model in a bikini. The message, welcome to the duality of Kanye. It debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200 with 94,000 album equivalent units, almost entirely from streaming. That made it the first chart-topping album to do so through streaming alone. In the United Kingdom, it peaked at number 30 and became the first album there to go gold from just streams. In the United States, it's been certified triple platinum. Singles like Famous, Father Stretch My Hands, and Fade all charted. Famous peaked at number 34 and got a double platinum certification. Critics gave it a Metacritic score of 75. Some loved the raw honesty, others said it felt like a scattered playlist. Either way, it picked up 5 Grammy nominations. The Life of Pablo broke release rules and still made history. Kanye never finished it. He just kept changing it. Yay, released on June 1st, 2018, this was Kanye's 8th studio album and probably his most raw. He recorded the whole thing in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and held a listening party there too. The craziest part? He reportedly scrapped the original version after that infamous TMZ moment and rebuilt the album in just 2 weeks. Producers included Mike Dean, Benny Blanco, Francis and the Lights, and Che Pope, but Kanye kept the focus tight and personal. It's only 7 tracks, but it hits hard in tone. I Thought About Killing You opens with spoken word and dives right into his mental state. Yikes keeps that energy going, tackling bipolar disorder head-on while riding a dark, pulsing beat. The production across the board is stripped down. No grand orchestras, just moody synths, soul samples, and raw honesty. All Mine leans into lust and relationships, while Wouldn't Leave gets vulnerable, talking about how his words affected his marriage. No Mistakes brings in Charlie Wilson and Kid Cudi, smoothing things out with soul touches. Ghost Town features 07, Oh Shake and Cudi again, with a wild outro that feels cathartic and almost gospel-like. Then there's Violent Crimes, where Kanye talks about his fears of raising daughters in a world he once bragged about dominating. The samples dig deep, pulling from gospel legends like Shirley Ann Lee and the Edwin Hawkins Singers, and global sounds like Ayuba Ogada's Kothbira. It's minimal, but emotionally loaded. Commercially, Ye debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, selling 208,000 album equivalent units in the first week, with 85,000 in pure sales. That made it Kanye's 8th straight #1 album in the United States, putting him in rare company. Critics weren't unified. Metacritic gave it a 64. Some praised the vulnerability. Others said it felt underdeveloped, but no one denied it sounded like a man going through something real. It didn't sweep major awards, but it got a nomination at the Hungarian Music Awards, weirdly enough. Still, Ye stands out in Kanye's catalog. Short, messy, honest, and impossible to ignore. Kids See Ghosts. Released on June 8, 2018. This was the debut album from Kanye, West, and Kid Cudi's duo, also called Kids See Ghosts. It was part of Kanye's Wyoming Project lineup, a stretch where he dropped 5 7-track albums in 5 weeks. The project was recorded mostly in Jackson Hole, with earlier sessions in Japan and China. Despite past tension between the two, this album marked a full-circle creative reunion, with guest spots from Pusha T, Yasin Bey, and Ty Dolla $ign, plus samples from Louis Prima and Kurt Cobain. Musically, this album is weird, in the best way. It mixes psychedelic rock, experimental rap, and moody soundscapes into something that doesn't sound like anything else from that year. The production team included Dot the Genius, Andre 3 Stacks, Mike Dean, and Plain Pat. Fourth Dimension opens with a Christmas song from the 1930s and flips it into a haunted carnival ride. Cudi Montage uses a guitar riff pulled from one of Cobain's posthumous demos. It's 7 tracks that feel like a full-on mental journey. Thematically, the album digs deep. Depression, recovery, rebirth, it's all there. Reborn is the emotional centerpiece, with Cudi and Kanye repeating the phrase, "I'm so reborn, I'm moving forward" over a hypnotic loop. Every song touches on some piece of healing or confrontation with the past. It's as reflective as it is surreal. The artwork, done by Takashi Murakami, mirrors the vibe perfectly. Bright colors, ghost figures, a bizarre dreamscape. It's playful, but there's something eerie underneath. It debuted at #2 on the Billboard 200, selling 142,000 album equivalent units, including 79,000 pure sales. It went gold in the United States and silver in the United Kingdom. It also charted in the top 5 in places like Canada and Estonia, because apparently Estonia knows good music. No singles were officially released, but tracks like Feel the Love, Reborn, and Fourth Dimension took on a life of their own. Critics loved it. Metacritic gave it an 86. It landed on tons of year-end lists and cemented itself as one of the best collaborative albums in modern hip-hop. Jesus is King, released on October 25th, 2019. This album marked Kanye West's full pivot into gospel. After years of experimenting with different sounds and themes, he took a hard turn toward faith-based music, ditching profanity, cutting secular topics, and going all in on Christianity. It dropped alongside a short IMAX film and followed months of Sunday service performances, where he remixed his catalog with a gospel choir. Recording took place all over, but much of it was done in Wyoming. The project's production came together fast and had a rotating cast, with sessions reportedly intense and constantly evolving. Tracks feature choral arrangements, heavy organ, and spiritual lyrics. This wasn't the Kanye of Yeezus or The Life of Pablo. This was Kanye as worship leader. The album has 11 songs, including Follow God, which flips a whole true sample into a bouncy but spiritual anthem, and Use This Gospel, which reunites Kliba and throws Kenny G into the mix for a sax solo. There's also Everything We Need and Hands On, which both show a more subdued, contemplative Kanye on God Enclosed. On Sunday, keep the gospel message, but bring in trap drums and newer sounds. It debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 with 264,000 album equivalent units. That gave Kanye his 9th straight #1 debut, tying Eminem's record. He also topped both the Christian and gospel charts for the first time, because why not shatter 3 genre records in 1 week? Critics weren't all on board. Metacritic gave it a 55. Some praised the production and sincerity, others called it uneven, rushed, or just confusing. But whether you loved it or hated it, you couldn't ignore it. Kanye flipped the script. Again, it went on to win Best Contemporary Christian Music Album at the 63rd Grammys and took home Top Gospel and Top Christian Album at the Billboard Music Awards. Even the GMA Dove Awards tossed him a nomination. Jesus is King sparked debate on whether Kanye's spiritual awakening was legit or performance art, but either way, it signaled a new phase in his career, less chaos, more choir. Donda. The album dropped on August 29th, 2021, after years of changes, delays, and total chaos. Named after his mom, the late Donda West, the whole thing was crafted over a span of 3 years, with Kanye hopping between his ranch in Wyoming and that massive stadium in Atlanta, like a wandering sound engineer with a God complex. It started out as God's Country back in May 2020, but of course, he couldn't stick to one title or plan. He didn't just release the album, no, he turned it into a whole spectacle. 3 massive listening events, 2 in Atlanta and 1 in Chicago, where the stage looked like a post-apocalyptic fashion show, and the guest appearances had the internet gasping and groaning at the same time. Musically, it's a genre blender. Hip-hop collides with gospel, experimental sounds creep in, and progressive rap makes everything a little weirder. The producers list is a whole crew. Mike Dean, Bugs the Beast, Dem Joints, and Oji Volta helped stitch the sound together. The original album had 27 tracks and ran about 108 minutes. Then came the deluxe version in November with 32 tracks, pushing past the 2-hour mark like it was a Marvel movie. The lyrics swing between raw pain and giant declarations, covering faith, family, loss, and divorce. And it's not subtle. Kanye poured his life into this, with lines about his breakup with Kim Kardashian and his struggle to keep faith steady. For the cover, nothing. Literally, a black square, minimalist, but definitely bold. Even with critics splitting down the middle, Donda crushed commercially. It hit number 1 on the Billboard 200 and became his 10th straight chart-topping album. That tied him with Eminem for most consecutive number 1s. In 1 week, it racked up more than 357 million streams. First Day Records crushed. It topped charts in 18 other countries, with France finally giving Kanye a number 1 spot. Songs like Hurricane, Jail, and Off the Grid didn't need single treatment. They exploded on their own. Grammy nominations rolled in. Jail snagged Best Rap Song. Hurricane took Best Melodic Rap Performance. Love it or not, Donda's legacy is locked in. Donda 2. This one came with drama baked in. It dropped on February 23rd, 2022, but not on your usual platforms. Nope, Kanye made fans cough up $200 for a little gadget called the stem player. That thing let users play around with the tracks, isolating vocals or drums like bedroom DJs. The album didn't show up on streaming until over 3 years later, on April 29th, 2025. And even then, it landed under a mysterious artist page called Donda, not Kanye's own. The rollout was anything but boring. He previewed the album at the Donda Experience performance event in Miami on February 22nd. They built a replica of his childhood home, because of course they did. The stage filled up with names like Migos, Future, Travis Scott, and Baby Keem. If it sounded more like a festival lineup than an album preview, that's because it basically was. Future served as executive producer, helping Kanye mold the sound, which leaned even more into minimalism. The whole thing had a raw and unfinished feel. The topics stayed personal. His divorce from Kim Kardashian, his kids, and his non-stop wrestling match with fame. Science fiction even sampled Kim's Saturday Night Live monologue. When it finally streamed, there were 20 tracks in total. Songs like True Love with X stood out, especially with its runaway sample folded in. City of God, acting like a gritty love letter to New York. Louis Baggs paid tribute to the late Virgil Abloh, giving the album one of its few moments of reflection. Since it was locked behind that stem player wall, Donda 2 didn't chart, not even close. And by the time it hit streaming, DJ Academics predicted it had barely scraped 10,000 first-week sales. That release strategy did it no favors. Critics tore it up. They called it a sloppy pile of half-finished thoughts. Pitchfork went after the spectacle angle, while The Guardian said it felt like background noise for a chaotic social media spiral. Still, the release model kicked up conversations about control and how artists get their music out. Just don't expect anyone to call it his best work. Vultures 1, the debut album from the duo, landed on February 10th, 2024, and it did not creep in quietly. Released under Kanye's Yeezus label, the album came in loud with 16 tracks across 55 minutes, mashing up hip-hop, trap, and experimental sounds into a pretty chaotic mix. They spent years piecing it together, recording in spots like Kanye's Wyoming Ranch and the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. This project originally started life under the name God's Country, way back in 2020, because Kanye apparently likes to rename things like a toddler with crayons. Production was all over the place, in a good way. Mike Dean, Bugs the Beast, Dem Joints, and Oji Volta came through with layered, genre-bending work. Some tracks dipped into gospel tones, while others went heavy on glitchy, distorted textures. The lyrics, all about fame, chaos, loss, and Kanye's usual internal tug-of-war. There's also a verse from his daughter Northwest on Talking, which adds just enough awkward sweetness to cut through the madness. The album cover kept it minimalist, with a plain black square. Kanye teased other options, but surprise, he went with the most aggressively blank one again. Commercially, Vultures 1 exploded. It debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200 with over 309,000 units in its first week. That made it Cool J's 10th number 1 in a row, tying him with Eminem. First week streams, an absurd 357 million. It broke records on both Apple Music and Spotify. The album also hit number 1 in 18 countries, finally giving Kanye a number 1 in France. 3 singles made waves: Vultures, Talking Once Again, and Carnival. They charted internationally and lit up the feeds. Critically though, it was a mixed bag. Metacritic dropped it a 53. Some critics praised the wild ambition and huge production, while others pointed out the messiness and lack of focus. Still, Vultures 1 added another unpredictable chapter to Kanye's career. Between the commercial success and polarizing reception, it proved yet again that nothing he releases ever lands quietly. Vultures 2, the sequel to the chaotic first volume, dropped on August 3rd, 2024, and brought even more names into the mix. Kanye West and Ty Dolla $ign packed this one with features: Don Toliver, Playboy Cardi, Kodak Black, Lil Baby, Future, Lil Durk, Lil Wayne, Designer, 07, O'Shake, and even Ty's brother, Big TC. Kanye's daughters, North and Chicago, made an appearance on the track bomb, because no Kanye album is complete without a few family plot twists. Some songs had a history. Can You Be was first cooked up back in 2016 during sessions for The Life of Pablo, and Sky City and 530 were pulled from the ashes of the never-released Yandi and Donda 2. The album missed 2 planned release dates before being dropped out of nowhere in August. Musically, it's all over the place. Hip-hop, house, R&B, trap, and even a little avant-garde weirdness thrown in. Kanye played the role of the wounded prophet again, leaning into themes about freedom, money, women, and personal redemption. Some fans even wondered if parts of his vocals were generated by artificial intelligence, since he barely shows up on certain tracks. The album has 16 tracks, including standouts like Slide, River, Bomb, and Dead. Lifestyle brought in Lil Wayne, and My Soul closed things out with Todd Rundgren. Then came the deluxe editions. On August 7th, the first bonus track, Take Off Your Dress, appeared. After that, more versions came through Kanye's site, each for $5. They added songs like Believer, Drunk with Peso Pluma, Gun to My Head with Kid Cudi, and the long-awaited Can You Be with Travis Scott. Still, the streak ended. Vultures 2 debuted at number 2 on Billboard, breaking Kanye's run of 11 straight number 1s. Critics were not impressed. The album got slammed for feeling half-done, with reviews calling it messy, disjointed, and just not worth the wait. The visuals: Slide had a black and white video, Fried got the animated treatment, and Bomb got a dystopian upgrade, featuring Miles. And the cover, Ty Dolla $ign in all black, holding a photo of his brother Big TC, an image loaded with meaning and grief. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching.